Hi, everybody. I wanted to be able to walk you through some examples of how you find scholarly research using a couple of things, including the Wilson College Library and a couple other online sources. Excuse me. So I was reading this book, The Psychology of Video Games, and it had a particular chapter that I was really interested in. And when I looked at the sources in the back on that particular chapter, I found a couple I really wanted to read more about. So here are some of the sources that were listed in the end. I don't have always the author's last name, but sometimes you can go without the author's last name. Sometimes you do need a date, sometimes you don't. But I'll kind of walk you through how you can find sources. There's not always one particular story or way that you do it because sometimes you hit little roadblocks. So I'll just show you how I kind of went from this example. So I took each of these first. I went to the Wilson College Library, which is linked on the Google Doc that I have shared with you, and I just popped in the parts of the title. I then just leave it on one search. I hit search, and for the first thing I was looking for, I found it right away. So this is what it looks like when you do a search in the Wilson College Library. Uh, Notice that this is an academic journal, which is a very common kind of scholarly source. Excuse me. It's a journal that is deeply committed to a specific subject, highly scholarly. When I take a look at the authors, they match the ones I found in the book. So basically, I just hit jackpot. Uh, I really want to read this thing. So one thing I can do is I can hit the read online button, which I'll just open in a new tab. And most of the time, it's a PDF like this. So I just found the source. Now, these kinds of sources can be very scary for some educators. They look really serious. They tend to be really long. And in many cases, they involve all kinds of numbers and formulas and tables like this. And in most cases, unless you're taking a course that's very specific about that topic, you don't really need to read through all of that stuff. It's pretty tough to get through. However, it is always really important to get a concept of the abstract. So the very beginning will describe what they were trying to do. And almost always at the end, you'll get a section that's sometimes called discussion or sometimes called results. So here's a general discussion. And as I scan through that, I can really get the idea of what they have or have not proven. You'll find that when you're looking at scholarly articles, they aren't really like blog posts, which most educators tend to look at, because in many cases it's really difficult to find a good scholarly source that says something about education is entirely one thing or entirely another thing. So in many cases they do have results, but often they're kind of balanced results. They aren't often as extreme as you would think, and that's how most scholarly sources really are. Another super useful thing is the list of references. There have been many times when I've looked something up and I read through the scholarly source like this one, and I found out that that really wasn't what I was looking for. But when I looked down at the research, or sorry, the references, I suddenly found something else that was exactly what I was looking for. So then I can basically go back, pop back into the Wilson Library and try to find that particular source. Secondly, if you find a source and you're going to use it, you're going to want to cite it. And if you find something in the Wilson College Library, it's pretty easy to do. Just go to See Item Details. So I'll open this in a new tab. And within See Item Details, you're going to see a lot of things, print, email, save, etc. You can actually save things that you find in the Wilson College website. And then Cite. So if you hit Cite and you scroll through this, you will find APA. So there is your citation. It also has a link in it, so you're going to need to collect that link to be able to complete the research project. So you are all set. Well, sometimes things don't go that easily. So let's try my second one here, The Motivating World of Violence in Video Games. I'll pop back to the library. I'll try to search for this one, and I'll hit search. You can probably guess I did this already, so I know what's going to happen. In this, I get some interesting stuff, but I don't get the thing that I want. So, outside of Wilson Library, you can do other things. You can use a standard Google search. You can also use Google Scholar and Google Books. So if I pop this in Google Scholar and I take a search, it's there. And those are the authors. If I go to Google Books, pop it in, it's there. Now don't forget, sometimes just because you find something in search results doesn't mean you can read it. Doesn't mean that it's not behind some kind of a subscription paywall. So we'll just take a look and see if that's true here. What do I get? In Google Scholar, I get it in this particular Sage journal it comes from. It gives me citations, but notice it's got access options, okay, which means that I probably can't get to it unless I pay for it. And sometimes the article is extremely expensive. So weirdly enough, when I do this search in Google Books, I get a different thing. I actually get somebody somewhere has posted a PDF of the article. So there's no way I could have predicted that was going to happen, but I found it. Okay, so I just tried a couple different ways and I found it. And if you take a look at this article and we kind of scan through, it's discussing different studies. There's lots of numbers. This should look kind of familiar. And then after we get to the bottom, this is quite a long one, we can usually find their discussion of the results. Okay, so here's our brief discussion, our general discussion, and then, of course, the very useful other references down at the bottom. Okay, I did have one other one to try here, which is really old. So it turns out that these other articles are very much built on some of the work of this Leon Festinger. And if I take and do a search of him and his article in the Wilson College Library, they know who he is. You can see he's kind of suggested here. They have works by him, but they in fact don't have that one. So therefore, I couldn't get it through the library. If I pop back out here to Google and I pop it in, I'm still getting these particular sites. Sorry, that was Google Books. So I'm going to go to Google Scholar. And I'm going to pop it in there. These sites are all listed on the research assignment. And here I have found something. Can I read it? Also in Sage Journals, but they have decided to post the PDF. Oh, I'm sorry. This one also has content. I mean, I have to pay for the content. Okay, so sometimes you're going to hit jackpot, sometimes you're not. Overall, it's not that hard to find something that you're interested in, because once you do find an article that's useful, you of course have the references at the end of the article. So I hope this all helps. Of course, you're going to need your Wilson College account login to be able to carry this out. And if you have any questions while you're trying all this, don't hesitate to contact me.